Hey everybody, Ghost 7, King of the Penguins here, with an experiment. I'm going to be splitting up a video about my match against Hogat, one of my previous matches against Hogat, into different videos, so it's not just like a 2-hour block. So this part will be just talking about the map we were playing on, and yeah, just talking about that. Nice and easy. Now, before I get into it, though, I would like to thank Gustav Z, who has this nice fan art of Cobalt Ice, featuring his own fan-made leader, Frost Penguin, the robot penguin who helped kickstart the rebellion. It was drawn by WGB, one of his friends, who I'll link in the description. So thank you, Gustav Z. And if anyone has any Cobalt Ice fan art that they'd like to have shown off on the channel, I will gladly do so. Just send it my way. Anyway, this map that I'm going to be battling Hogat on is Issus, or yeah, I'll just call it Issus. It's I'm not quite sure how you pronounce it, but that's good enough. And it has a few really important things to keep in mind. First of all, the black boats on these HQs, I'm not a fan because it's very much forced to take the black boat off. Otherwise, you're going to fall very far behind in a capture game because the black boat is going to be able to go up here and then drop infantry all the way down here for all of this capture to be accelerated. If you don't do that, you are going to be multiple turns behind in economy and also in just presence in this general area. That's game losing against someone who is not HQ rushing you. Because the point of the black boats on these HQs is to prevent an HQ rush. And this makes it so if you're going to play against anyone that isn't going for the HQ rush cheese, you have to take your black boat off and just accept the fact that if they do HQ rush you, you're just going to lose. So I'm just going to quickly demonstrate what I'm talking about with the HQ rush and how it's something you just accept when you move the black boat off the HQ for that accelerated capture game. I'm going to have player 1 do an HQ rush on player 2, and I'm going to have player 2 just kind of play a standard game. They're going to move an infantry onto the HQ to be kind of protective, and we'll just see how it all plays out. And one of the important things to note when seeing this is that player 2 does not have any indication whether or not this is arriving. They're not going to have any signals that they would have seen, like if it was coming or if it wasn't coming, because of how the map's laid out. So right away, all we do for player 1 is just build a single infantry in the southern base and end the turn. Player 2, doing the standard thing, just going to be building infantry, moving the black boat, moving towards the neutral base. We'll move this infantry up, and then we will build an APC, which we were able to do because we base skipped last turn. Player 2, of course, just does their thing. Very standard. They're not going to do anything. I mean, they're going to be playing the game as if they were playing against someone else that was playing rather standard against them. That little boost doesn't matter. I'm mostly going to be doing this just to have the infantry alongside the APC. They'd be able to keep it in the APC or not. They build this infantry just so they can get a recon a turn production, although it doesn't matter because the game doesn't really reach that far. Alright, player 2, finish these captures. Start that capture, move on to the mountain, build an infantry. This guy goes over here, build these guys to hop on the black boat next turn. Alrighty. ABC moves over, infantry moves over, we build a recon, we start capping this airport. Very little to do on player 1's turn. Player 2, however, has all these infantry to move. You know, comes over here, drops these infantry off. Moves this guy over here, builds a transport copter. Triple infantry. Alright. Player 1 has a specific move to do right here. Very important to go here and drop the infantry here so that they can see that vision of this tile, so they will know if player 2 walked onto their HQ or not. They're also in a spot where player 2 can't hit them. The worst thing that player 2 could do would be to have an inefficient opening and move the black boat down here to try and spot if something was happening. But that's not good if you're playing against someone who isn't HQ rushing you. And then you're just going to have a slower deployment in this area, which could cost you. And even if you do that, that doesn't even stop it. At least not entirely. So anyway, player 2 goes down here, sits on their HQ en route to capture the city. You don't have vision while you're moving, only when you are stopped. So they don't see the infantry on the city, but the infantry saw them move by. And then we'll capture the harbor, we'll capture this city. We'll... Oop, not there. I guess that doesn't super matter, but drop that guy off, wait to be picked up by this black boat. Good. Build infantry. This capture. Kinda move ourselves down here. Lots of infantry. Could build a recon. I think they wouldn't. They'd probably build nothing but infantry, so they gave that tank next turn. Alrighty, so player 1 saw that player 2 stepped onto the HQ. If they didn't see player 2 step onto the HQ, they would just step onto it right now. But instead, they will go hide in these forests and wait for player 2 to step off while these recons are en route. If player 2 had not gone here and instead sent this guy up to get this property and this guy captured the harbor, then they would just lose immediately. Player 1 would start this capture and the APC would block right here, and player 2 would not be able to hit at all the infantry captain in HQ. So in this case, player 2 is surviving longer. Start that capture. Now player 1 sees that this infantry is capping this, knows there's nothing on this HQ, and player 2 still hasn't seen anything because these are hiding in the forests. And if this wasn't an HQ rush, they also wouldn't see anything. So there's no indication that something might be amiss. Because there's no chance to get an early scout in a normal game anyway at this point, because of how far away you are from each other. So this just happens here. Player 1 starts the HQ cap, moves the APC right here to block. Recon comes in. This recon's coming over. Guess I'll finish this capture. Recon comes over, build another recon. Why not? There's player 1's turn. Player 2 panics, of course. Walk over here. Definitely stop this capture, otherwise you just lose the game. Knock this guy down to 7. Knock down to 7 yourself. Walk over. We're gonna say that player 2 max high rolls against this APC, so it's knocked down to a low 6. And then move everything down here. Triple base skip. Build a battle copter. Get ready to move an infantry down there. Let's finish this off. You know, just in case you somehow survive, you might as well get your captures going. Like so. Another boost, go back for that, and you triple B skipped, so that's it. What's player 1 do? Well, capture again, so now it's down to 3. The recon goes over, kills this guy. This recon comes in, knocks this guy down to 4. Recon goes over, infantry move over. Doesn't really matter what you buy, might as well build an APC. And the turn. Okay, player 2 can't do anything. They have officially lost the game. Even if they max roll with both of these guys, and they don't even have a follow-up after that, but even if they max roll, the best they could do is knock this down to 1. I think the max roll against an APC on the shoal with an infantry with no firepower bonus is 24%, so this would be at 4% health. Tank can't reach, Battlecopter can't reach, doesn't matter. Even if this tank was a turn earlier and was able to kill the APC, and infantry hitting this guy has a fairly... It's a roll to knock this infantry capping down to 2, which you'd have to do since your HQ is at 3, and it's not a super favorable roll. So even if the tank is earlier, breaks the APC, even that won't save you like half the time or so. But that is why I think the black boat design on this map is flawed. It's a combination of how far away these bases are and the fact that you fall so far behind if you don't take the black boat off, but there's also no way of knowing if an HQ rush is coming, and there's also nothing you can do once it arrives unless you want to be seriously hurting your economy. You could go for like a really fast battlecopter, but that will also hurt your economy. For one, you won't get your transport copter for a really long time, and you won't have any other vehicles for a long time. So that'll be pretty bad against someone who's not HQ rushing you. So I hope that was informative, and it explains my position on that. Back to the map. The black boats on these maps serve a very important role, of course, and oftentimes if there's opportunities to remove them from the HQs to accelerate your capture phase, it needs to be balanced so that you're not accelerating it so much that it's game deciding, and also you're able to like commit units to defend the HQ to make up for the fact that you left it. And that's a balancing act that I believe this map fails pretty poorly. But talking about more like highlights of the map, because this is actually an S rank fog map, which is as high as the map ranks go. So there are some cool things about it. Starting off, you'll notice that for player 1 here, the infantry from either of these bases take the same number of turns to get to the neutral base. And what that means is that player 1 actually gets to decide which side they want to be ahead on and which one they want to be behind on. Whichever one they send their first built infantry towards this base from is the one they're going to be behind on. Usually they send it from this base so that they can go for the airport right away, but they don't have to. They can do it the other way and like have some mix up in that way. And that's pretty cool. There's not that many maps that let you do that, and it kind of adds more of a twist to the FTA balance and good old Fred over here. Something else, of course, that as I just mentioned, is that the airport is so close to your bases. So not only is the airport so close, just one turn away from your base, there's also this city. It's a little island city that's also right from this airport. So that really encourages transport copter plays. And I'm personally a fan of transport plays. So any openings that can either be vehicle heavy or transport into vehicles or vehicles into transport, all that stuff, having more options, I think, is a pretty cool design choice. The combats on this map pretty much always take place between the comm towers and the HQs, because player 2 gets this comm tower while this is player 1's HQ. Player 1 gets this comm tower while this is player 2's HQ. So the battles happen here where player 1 is either defending their comm tower or pushing for the HQ, and player 2 is doing the same thing on this side. The middle doesn't get that much action because, well, for one, labs don't do anything in Global League. But these properties are actually fairly safe to capture, and the only thing that the middle is going to be used for is front switches because of these lakes that really prevent any travel for land units unless they went back through this very annoying base setup with these mountains and these forests. So the only thing that could really front switch that doesn't go through the middle is going to be air, and you have this airport that you get really early on, so there's often a very heavy air presence on this map because they're much more flexible with all of these terrain restrictions. And front switching through the middle is kind of risky because there's a lot of these forests around that a recon can sit in and just spot the whole thing, and then you can get punished for it. These comm towers that I was saying that when players can either be defending or pushing from are very difficult to actually take. They look very contested because they're like in the middle of the map, but once someone gets them, you have to note that they're completely surrounded by shoals. So if you're trying to take them back, you like put your infantry on here, and then you can't really block it because blockers on all of these shoals are very vulnerable to vehicle strikes, and then an infantry can come in to interrupt. So the only real way that you can like deny and control it is using this forest for an artillery. If it gets there early enough, it could potentially deny the comm tower, but it's much harder, it's much more difficult done than said. Easier said than done. There we go. But that's an option you can go for. A lot of these properties are not very contented. They're not very easy to fight over, I guess. A lot of them are very safe. So these ones down here are kind of up for grabs. Mostly this one. These ones are both kind of safe. This one might swap, but then have a hard time swapping back. Like player 1 might get to this one first, but then player 2 shows up and takes it, kind of a thing. And then this one is actually one you can fight over. But most of the fighting really just happens in this area and not so much around properties, which is can get kind of awkward on the map. There's also that the airports feed very nicely into the defense of the HQs, and that means if you're losing in this fight, but you're like winning on the other side, you can start pumping out stealths and as like a last second to defend the HQ kind of thing. There's also this reef over here, so you can build a battleship and it covers the HQ. Lots of ways to defend the HQ in the late game, just not so much in the early game. And I kind of want that reversed in maps. I'm not a fan of being able to defend the HQ in the late game, because once you're in the late game, the next step is that the game ends. So these stalling positions where your invisible battleship in range of the airport, so it's really hard for them to take it out, and I don't know, it's just not a huge fan of that. But yeah, I think that pretty much covers the map. The big highlights are the black boats are awkward, but the like good things that you want to look for when you're playing are these airports that are early, and the transport copter openings you can do, even some battle copter kind of openings you can do, though they are kind of far away, so I'd be very tentative on that. And also that player 1 can choose which side that they want to be ahead and behind on, which is a neat feature. And I think more maps should probably find ways of doing that, because that's really cool. Yeah, I think that'll wrap up this video. I hope you guys have good luck and have fun.